As the world's most photographed woman, no other person can compete with Her Royal Highness the Princess of Wales. Diana enjoys the spotlight. As a child, her ambition was to become a dancer. As good fortune would have it, she became a princess instead. Like all royals, the Princess of Wales decides to dress according to people's expectations, but Diana does it much better. Whatever the occasion, she's there to please the person or people she's going to be with, and that usually means dressing for the part, something the princess enjoys doing very much. On and off duty, she marshals her expressions perfectly. She's rarely photographed looking bored or dispirited. Over time, the formula has become simpler and more played down, but above all, she wants to be seen for what she does rather than for what she wears. Diana's day wear amounts to an interpretation of an executive woman's wardrobe standing out in a crowd. Even on family occasions, she's rarely caught off guard. Fashionable dressing has never been a special aim of British royalty, yet Diana begins from a position of enjoying clothes. Despite accusations of being a clothes horse, Diana knows looking good is an important part of the show. The principles that govern her dressing at home, abroad, and in the public eye confirm she's a very different creature from the other members of the royal family. The British upper class dress smartly, above all, to be polite and conventional. One sign of her remarkable strength of character is the way she faces up to media attention. She's always fair game to photographers the world over, on and off duty. What's more, being Diana, she's decided it was a game she would win. At the beginning of her marriage, she deliberately appointed herself promoter of British fashion. Diana has emerged adept in the language of clothes. Demanding foreign tours mean 3 or 4 changes a day, causing accusations of extravagance and an obsession with her image. When favourite outfits are worn on several occasions, newspapers interpret this as evidence of thrift in the time of recession. Yet she's managed to lighten the routine of being photographed on parade, a routine which started at the age of 19 with rumours of a romance between her and Prince Charles.
Because you never see her looking like this now. She's got this sort of pink, slightly frumpy evening gown on. And she's got a green woolen Loden coat over the top. It's obviously her coat she wears during the day. She hasn't got an evening gown coat. And she's huddled into this coat, and she suddenly spotted us, and she's absolutely bright red. She went absolutely bright red. Really, really red, and she was sort of hogging the wall as she walked along. She was terrified of us as she walked along to the car. And she just looked so young, and I thought, God, this is the beginning of it all.
Caught by TV cameras leaving by the back door of the kindergarten where she worked as a nursery school teacher, who could have speculated that within months women around the world would be looking for inspiration to Lady Diana Spencer, future Princess of Wales and one-day Queen. Speaking about their engagement, the young bride-to-be wore a modest off-the-peg blue suit by Kajana, purchased from Harrods. During her engagement, Diana's exposure to the press was intense. As a public figure in embryo, she began to learn lessons the hard way, particularly when she tried a plunging neckline on one of her first official engagements, much to the delight of the media, who'd been watching her closely.
And it was when the prince took the princess to the Guildhall for dinner one evening, and she was wearing a very low-cut, strapless black dress. And she, in climbing out of the car, she did, or very nearly, the stories differ, fall completely out of this thing. And that was something she could never, ever have foreseen. I mean, who would think of it, you know? But, of course, getting out of this grand limousine was just the final kiss of death for her. And it was a very embarrassing lesson that was learnt very quickly, and she's never repeated it. And she now wears frightfully brave and exotic things, but they are very much more tightly clasped to her.
Months later, on the steps of St. Paul's Cathedral, millions watched as the young bride unravelled her wedding dress designed by David and Elizabeth Emmanuel, made of ivory-coloured silk. Her father, Earl Spencer, accompanied Diana down the aisle. create a wardrobe befitting a princess, Diana had to start virtually from scratch. In the absence of any formal royal training, how does a young princess know how to dress?
Well, there were two influences, I guess. One was obviously the circle of friends that she mixed in, and the other was actually what was fashionable at the time. And I guess we're talking about 1980, 1981 now, aren't we? She was very, that sort of set that she moved in was very much into sort of neck things, you know, frilly hair and little kind of cravat things, and rather sort of, we hadn't hit the suits yet because the rest of the very high fashion world was in amongst the Japanese at this point, and we were all wearing black with sort of, you know, things, holes pulled out of it and so on and so forth. It would have been totally unsuitable for the Princess of Wales. And so she was really she dressed in a very English county stroke Chelsea way, which was absolutely perfect for the fiancé of the Prince of Wales. There wasn't any question about it that everybody in England totally understood the signal she gave out in the way that she was dressed as a 19-year-old. And I think for its purpose, it served her very, very well to look very conservative and very sort of English and beautiful English Rose County sort of person. So I think that was her first. I mean, she obviously then started to look at what she actually did look like, and she felt, well, maybe I could, you know, have a bit more neck showing and so on and so forth. So nowadays, when she absolutely, I mean, she doesn't, you know, she's just so confident that it doesn't make any difference. So the difference is extraordinary from that, you know, sort of chin down was clothed, and now it's sort of wonderfully, and sort of she just feels comfortable in anything she wears.
Diana's first official foreign tour was to Australia and New Zealand in 1983. For the first time in her life, she realized the need for a huge wardrobe to meet the demands of the job. Having a suitable change of clothes was a formidable task, particularly for a young mother constantly under public scrutiny and intense pressure.
That was a grueling tour, 6 weeks, and I think they vowed never to do a tour that long again. She had William with her, and of course he was only, 6 months old at that stage, and it was just a whistle-stop tour, always travelling, and they kept the baby back at a ranch in central Australia, and they kept commuting backwards and forwards so that she could be with the baby. Since then, they've never ever had a long tour like it, because you could tell after about a week she was just totally exhausted. I mean, not only was it, I mean, also it was her first trip. She's learning how to meet people. You know, it was all sort of new to her and very daunting. But to have 6 weeks of it too, and 6 weeks for us too, I mean, trying to keep up with them. But it was exciting because it was all fresh. You know, we didn't really know much about her, and everybody was still sort of getting over the wedding and the excitement of that. And the Australians were really sort of huge crowds turned out to get a glimpse of her. She was very shy still. It was an interesting visit, but too tiring.
Walkabouts are occasions when Diana can almost forget the conventions and restrictions of being a leading member of the world's preeminent royal family and come face to face with her adoring public. Everybody loves to catch a glimpse of a princess dressed in clothes to which they can relate. Soon the girly outfits were to vanish as her wardrobe began to reflect a growing confidence.
Well, this was her first big tour. It was her first big sort of tour away for weeks. And it was about 4 weeks into the tour, and we'd had lots of sort of girly outfits all through the tour. Lots of day dresses, and on the evening clothes had all been sort of full gowns and the sort of things you would expect her to wear. But then suddenly, on the last night, she turned up at the dinner wearing this really, what I would call her first sexy outfit. And it was a very slinky, fitted dress, beaded, and it looked very sort of dynasty and glamorous. And it was so different from everything that she'd worn on the whole trip. This outfit actually looked, without having a low cut, it looked wonderful.
Diana fell naturally into the routine of royalty. She developed her own sense of style and fashion. One of the principal beneficiaries of her high-profile public role was the British fashion industry. Down the years, they've benefited particularly from her position in the royal family firm. Designers like Belleville Sassoon, Jasper Conran, and Bruce Oldfield are among her favourites. Catherine Walker of the Chelsea Design Company, always at the helm of British fashion, has constantly topped Diana's list. Very soon, her designs were copied in the high street shops as her bows and gathers gave way to the sleek, tailored styles, cultivating a more sophisticated image. She tried out everything she could in order to experience what was around in the British fashion scene. Above all, it was the rags-to-riches London designer Bruce Oldfield who introduced her to the sleek, glamorous film star look, replacing the strapless top with the big flowery skirt.
Bruce was the first person, I think, really to introduce her to a kind of swathed, more sort of glamorous, film starry sort of look. I mean, she did have those dresses before, but they were much more the sort of bustier with the big skirt. And Bruce tended to make them kind of slinky and rather wonderful and sort of gathered and with a kind of thing here. So I think he freed her and made her aware that she could perhaps, you know, be a bit more shapely with the evening clothes rather than just wear the classic hunting, shooting, fishing ball dress that you tend to get. So I think he probably pushed her in that direction quite fast.
The princess looks particularly good wearing Catherine Walker's designs. Her fitted suits look perfect on Diana's shapely figure. The rising sun motif on the hat was originally created for an official visit to Japan. The hat, by royal milliner Philip Somerville, tops off the whole ensemble.
The English fashion scene benefited tremendously from having this extraordinary patronage of the world's most photographed woman. I mean, I don't think anybody could quite believe that she was actually there wearing British. And it was never, no public statement was ever made. Nobody, I mean, there's this myth about how she was told she had to wear British, and there is a complete myth. I mean, the princess felt that she should, as she does in all things, support what was right to do, and she did it. And it was, I mean, it was like a goldmine for British fashion. In the 80s, she really was an enormous help to us, without probably even knowing it in the beginning.
One British designer who's benefited from Diana's support of homegrown talent is Victor Edelstein, famous for his incredibly grand style supported only by simple accessories.
Victor can get incredibly grand, which is wonderful. You know, you get those huge collars and enormous amounts of jewels and huge skirts. And I think she sort of travels to Victor for those kind of things from time to time.
On an official visit to Washington in 1985, the Americans were not slow to celebrate a royal tour in their own way. Diana and the American people hit it off immediately. She enjoyed their warmth and openness, and they were charmed by her good looks and friendly manner. President and Mrs. Reagan were the hosts at a glittering White House ball, the highlight of the tour, and for Washington, the social event of the decade. For the occasion, Diana looked radiant in a dark navy velvet spectacular gown, designed naturally by Victor Edelstein. She wore a 7-strand pearl choker with a huge sapphire clasp and sapphire and diamond earrings.
The thing about the Princess of Wales is when she actually does dress up to go to things like the White House Gala, she really understands that simplicity is, above all things, the master. And so she looks incredible. I mean, she really does, she can do it. I mean, she really says, okay, guys, you know, whatever you've said about me in the press at this point, I'm going to go for it. And I think that particular occasion, she did look extraordinary. And it was the moment she had to look extraordinary, and she did it. She knows when to do it, I'm quite sure.
At a dinner in Bonn, the princess arrived wearing for the first time in public the matching set of exquisite jet and diamond jewels, a gift from the Sultan of Oman. Final touches were added by the Spencer family tiara and a deep blue velvet evening gown by Victor Edelstein.
Well, her taste in jewellery is marvellous because she's been given a sort of queen's ransom in jewels, a lot of it by the Saudi royal family. They gave her a lot of sapphires as a wedding present. And she got a lot of family jewels, the Spencer family tiara and the what we call the Queen Mary tiara, which isn't strictly speaking a Queen Mary tiara, but it's one that Queen Mary used to wear. And she wears those two. And then she combines these fabulous jewels, real jewels, with a lot of stuff she buys, you know, Butler & Wilson or Harvey Nichols. Wonderful, inexpensive jewellery, but looks dazzling on her. And I think that shows the great taste and style she's got, that she can wear something like that that cost, you know, a few pounds, and any woman could afford it. And on her, it looks like it cost $1 million.
You can have all the Chanel buttons in the world, and there are a lot of things you mustn't put with them, and an awful lot of jewellery you can't wear with them. And so she's really, in the end too, she's very much a minimalist with accessories. She doesn't load them on. You see a choker from time to time, but mostly when you see the little Catherine Walker suits, there's very little jewellery, and there's the beautiful hat, which is absolutely the way it should be.
First impressions are always memorable. How Diana looks the moment she steps off a plane is the image that finds its way onto television screens and front pages around the world. Being a woman constantly in the public eye has additional image problems, particularly on a windy day. What is foremost in Diana's mind as she steps off the plane on yet another round of handshaking and official duties?
Are there any creases, I should think? I would think that's the one thing getting off planes is it's nerve-wracking is if you're totally creased. But I would imagine everything's beautifully pressed. I don't know, but I should think a lot of I would think that the preparation that goes into those moments must be, you know, enormous.
The Princess of Wales has about 75 hats. Naturally, she knows how to wear them to bring out the best in an accompanying outfit.
She wears them so beautifully now, and I think in the early stages she wore them in the way English women wear hats to weddings, plonked on the head with the veil pulled over, or the fluff, the feather. And she, in very, very, very fast, we found her wearing them where they should be worn, which is across here. I mean, despite the fact that the photographers probably couldn't get into the eyes or couldn't see anything, but she really, almost immediately, maybe 2 years into being the Princess of Wales and having to wear a lot of hats, she suddenly realised she had to wear them the way they should be worn. Because she has great shoulders and terrific posture, she looks marvellous with those, you know, very broad hats. And once you wear those hats, you actually begin to like wearing them. She really does look like, you know, she could be a Vogue cover wearing those hats. But because she wears them properly, and she wears them with the right outfits, which is terribly important. I mean, she's always the one on the steps of the church at Christmas, you know, when they've all gone to the service, and she's immaculate. Everything matches, everything's perfect, and the hat's exactly where it should be. So, I mean, it's a great art wearing a hat properly, too. It's a great art.
Hair is important too. Early on, she experimented sweeping her long hair back off her face before deciding she looks better with it short.
Her hair's been getting shorter and shorter, and that, I think, tells you a lot about her, that she's not a vain woman. Her hair's short because it's practical, it's easy to manage. It's easy when you swim in every morning and you come back and get ready to go out. Short hair is quicker to redo. And if she had long hair, it would take hours and hours, and it would be a lot more fussy. So although most people consider long hair as more glamorous, she doesn't bother with that. She's sort of cut down everything in her life like that, getting dressed, getting out the door, down to a minimum. She can do it in like 5 or 10 minutes flat.
Generally, women grow into their hair. I mean, I think during the sort of 18, 19, 20 age group, you're finding out what your hair does and doesn't do. And most of us were allowed the 20s to experiment, but the Princess was not allowed that because obviously the media attention was so huge. So I suppose she very sensibly got herself organised with hairdressers who could deal with the way she wanted it. But that is what happened to her hair, as far as I can see, is it's all to do with relation to the neck. And as she became more aware that she could expose her neck, so the hair started to come up and get shorter and shorter and shorter. And as her confidence grew, she was able to deal with much shorter hair. And the Princess very soon came around to thinking, well, you know, maybe I've got this nice thing here in the jawline and the chokers and the bit, and if I goes up, up, up. And finally, nowadays, I think that it's probably much more functional for her to have the hair she has now, because she's obviously a busy mum now, which she wasn't 10 years ago. And you actually can't spend time on your hair if you're a busy mum and you're working and you're out and you're trying to get them from school and they've got to look good and you've got to get up. And so I think it looks wonderful now, and I mean, from a purely functional point of view, it has to be that way. I mean, once you've had short hair that works well, you never grow it again.
Activities centred around being a young mother, particularly at school sports day, naturally calls for a suitable kind of casual clothes befitting to a princess.
She looks wonderful in casual clothes. I mean, the picture for me, the best picture, is the one of the school race. You know, when she had her shoes off and she had that long skirt on, she was going for the winning line. Do you remember that? It's a great, great picture. And I think she looks great in jeans, and, you know, she wears the odd silly baseball cap. I just think that, you know, with all the strict dressing that she has to do all the time, it's very nice that she can actually just go out and wear jeans and wear kind of rough riding boots and a great sort of sloppy sweater, and I mean, if you are somebody who appears in public or has to dress up all the time, you've got to have a very safe, nice, easy, comfortable wardrobe that's your friend.
She has 3 wardrobes, actually, for her life. One wardrobe is the working wardrobe, we've already mentioned, the one that she wears on official engagements. Then there's the kind of Kensington mummy look when she goes to pick up the children from school. And this is a bit of a Sloane kind of wardrobe. She wears a bit of sometimes from Escada or designers like that. Mondi, she used to wear a lot of Mondi, you know, jackets and skirts and trousers from Mondi or culottes. And then there's what I think of sometimes as the Essex girl look that she has. I think there's a bit of Essex girl in most women, but it comes out in her when you see her on weekends. She looks very, very ordinary then. You would often walk straight past her and never recognised her. Sometimes when she's shopping in Cirencester on a Saturday morning. Maybe it's deliberate, maybe it's camouflage, but I don't think it's very flattering. It's probably very comfortable. But I think sometimes the Essex girl creeps into official work. Once recently she wore a red evening gown by Bruce Oldfield, which has a gold fleck in the fabric. And it's rather a nice evening gown. Well, it was when she first wore it in the mid-'80s. But then she put a pearl choker with about 5 strings of pearls in it. And that seemed so over the top. The combination of pearls, gold, bright red, it was very flashy. And I thought that was a bit of a mistake, but then we all have off days, don't we?
Diana discovered the coat dress. It proved to be a practical and yet extremely smart addition to her working wardrobe. Among her favourites is one by Catherine Walker in a pink and white check wool.
Of course, over the years, the coat dress has become quite popular with her. It's been a very good workhorse sort of outfit because it looks very smart always, and yet it's comfortable. She's got many, many coat dresses in different fabrics, but this was really the first Catherine Walker coat dress we saw. And it's beige, well, creamy actually, with a navy stripe in it, and it looks quite nautical. And in fact, the first time she wore it in Italy, it was a visit to a naval base, and she wore a cheeky little sailor's hat with it. It looked quite appropriate, actually, standing on the deck of the ship. But the whole outfit over the years just has always looked good, always looks crisp, fresh, never creases, and whatever event she's at, it looks wonderful.
On official occasions, Diana is never caught off guard. Her skirt seldom blows up, and she is rarely photographed climbing in and out of cars with her thighs showing. With maturity, she's learned how to conduct herself with photographers. The press does not make the distinction between the Princess of Wales as a royal figurehead and Princess Di, the celebrity. On a recent official trip to Canada, her appearance confirms she knows all the tricks of the royal trade, particularly when it comes to dressing.
It sort of shows her as 1992, sort of no fuss, an elegant sort of shape on the clothes. The jacket is long, very plain neckline, gone are all the ruffles and whatever from all those years before. Sort of, it's half like a business suit, but it's got a little bit more glamour to it. It's got a very short skirt in dark chocolate brown velvet, and the jacket is edged in it too. It looks elegant. It's a very pretty colour on her too. It makes her look, the colour emphasises her skin tones.
But according to some press people, Diana doesn't always get it right, as they discovered on a visit to France.
When she got out the car, we almost didn't recognise her because she was wearing a very unusual hat, and it was the first time we had seen her without her hair. So, in fact, you didn't recognise her at first because all her hair was concealed, and this big hat was over her face. And it was a Philip Somerville hat in felt, and it had a black snood attached to it and tied at the back in a sort of scarf fashion that completely concealed every inch of hair. And I thought it looked very French, very chic, and obviously she did too. But all the men, my colleagues, didn't like it at all, and they all thought that she looked fat, made her face look fat. I didn't agree, but obviously she read it in the papers, their comments, and has never worn it again since.
The hats are, I think they're rather wonderful. Most of them come from Philip Somerville, who can make any woman look a dream. He produces the most flattering hats in London, probably. And they're ideal because she kind of broke the royal rule about you mustn't wear big hats. They can conceal too much of your face and upset the photographers. I remember in India, we were all groaning because she was walking along this wonderful Mem Saab-looking outfit that just looked like she'd stepped out of the days of the Raj. And the hat was covering most of her face, but then she'd lift her head. She knows what to do, and when she got close to the camera, she would suddenly look up and then everybody get a shot. But the whole effect was just absolutely perfect for that setting. It was in the presidential palace in Delhi, and the outfit she wore just looked like something out of the 30s in the last days of the Raj. It was wonderful.
As a performer by nature, Diana enjoys the routine of being photographed on parade, although public interest in her activities can be intense, particularly on family occasions, with posses of hungry photographers in hot pursuit, appetites whetted by exotic Caribbean island backgrounds. Diana wants to keep her children out of the glare of publicity, but when duty calls, she happily makes herself available to support her media image. On this occasion, the photographers were particularly demanding.
Whilst she was on the beach posing for the photo call, she had on a one-piece swimsuit, which in fact she looked very good in. But as soon as the photo call had finished and the photographers had started to drift away in their boats, once they got to about 200 yards out, she appeared again on the beach from behind a bush in a minuscule red bikini. And it was sort of like a sort of tantalising the photographers because they were sort of so near yet so far, because it was too far to take a picture. And they said that she looked stunning in this teeny-weeny bikini prancing up and down the beach. And they all tried to make the boat turn around to go back, and there was this huge, great big row with the boatmen. They were all grabbing the wheel. These little boats were all rocking all over the place, and the Royal Protection were waving them away. And it was almost as if she'd done it on purpose. I think she sort of come to terms with the fact that the press were going to be there, whatever she did, so she'd have to learn to live with it. And I think she then realised that if she did give us a good picture, it would take the pressure off her. We would sort of disappear off in a far happier mood, and she could get on with whatever she was doing.
Pressure to perform, to look good at all times, is taken for granted by everyone except experienced royal watchers.
Well, she does a fantastic amount, and I think that's where we've got to give her a lot of credit. I mean, if you see somebody in the glossy magazines like Joan Collins or Ivana Trump, they have nothing else in life to do except work on looking wonderful. They've got endless hours to devote to pampering themselves. Now, the Princess of Wales doesn't. She has to squeeze that sort of thing into a very, very busy schedule as a working woman and as a wife and mother. And so she has to do it at the odd hours that she can manage. So she goes swimming, 7:30 in the morning, does 30 lengths of the pool at Buckingham Palace, and then she'll dash back home and get changed and have her hair done and take Harry to school and then rush off the other end of the country and do an engagement, and then she'll come back and maybe play a set of tennis in the afternoon, or whenever she's got a morning off, try and play tennis with friends. And she also has somebody to come in and advise her on workouts. She has an instructor that helps a couple of times a week. So she needs to maintain a fantastic level of fitness because of the strain of her life. I mean, foreign tours are exhausting.
On an official trip to Japan in 1986, media interest was unrelenting. It was dime-mania on a world scale. Her pop star status was hard to believe. In a modest way, her wardrobe included an off-the-peg dress from tatters in London's Fulham Road. With great forethought for her Japanese hosts, it was emblazoned with rising sun motifs.
This was the first very obvious example of what I call flag dressing, when she wears an outfit that sort of honours her host, or it sort of ties in somehow with the country in the national colours or whatever. In Kyoto, she visited the castle, and it was a tea ceremony. It was very traditional. Everybody was in kimonos, and she wore this red and white silk dress from tatters, and it was a white base with big red, large sort of rising sun circles, exactly as the Japanese flag. And she had a big red hat, and it just was sort of very appropriate for the occasion.
The Japanese returned the compliment by presenting Diana with a kimono, their national dress. even if it was a little bit too long for her. On an official visit to Hong Kong in November 1989, it was a Philip Somerville hat in the shape of a Chinese temple, which Diana had to keep a tight hold on. Catherine Walker designed the brightly coloured silk suit, a short red jacket, a cream camisole top and a wraparound sarong skirt in brilliant purple. As if in competition with the dazzling images of the Orient, Diana was original in her choice of colours.
Diana has defied all the traditional rules about colour. And I think that actually is one of the most exciting things about her. Every outfit she wears is remarkable in some way or another. It's not just beautifully cut. She has put violent pink with red, which you would have thought simply couldn't work. She's been terrifically brave about the things she's chosen to wear together.
The outfit she wore to visit the Taj Mahal, which I thought was a bit of a strange outfit to wear for sightseeing because it was very hot and she was walking around the outside of the ponds in front of the Taj, but she had on this quite formal suit that she'd worn before in Hong Kong. But I think she must have chosen it because of the colours, because when you looked at the photographs, the colours, that she stands out so much, the red and the mauve, against this white marble. It looks really stunning. And in fact, the colours do blend in with all the saris. If you look at her standing against all the local women, to begin with, you thought, why has she chosen that outfit to wear today? It seems a funny thing to wear. When you look at the pictures, it just fits in with all the colours of India. It looks wonderful.
Travelling abroad, the climate is not always kind to the royal visitor. In the call of duty, the Prince and Princess of Wales regularly encounter the rigours of extreme heat. For Diana, looking and feeling good demands cool clothes to endure the hottest hours of the day.
Actually, she's very good in the heat because I always wonder how she looks so cool. But her face looks extremely hot. She has beads of perspiration and she goes redder and redder. But actually her clothes, you never see them looking sticky or sweaty. Or, when she's been sitting against a chair in extreme heat in Indonesia even, when she got up, she didn't have any sort of sticky marks at the back of. I don't know, she must have some mysterious secret deodorant formula or something because she just looks so super cool.
With maturity, Diana has learned to conduct herself in public, avoiding awkward or frivolous moments, particularly when her husband is around.
She's very cheeky when she's on her own away from the prince, actually. She's more extrovert when she's on her own. And she seems more relaxed when she's not with the prince. I suppose it's just that she hasn't got to watch what he's doing and sort of remember what she's supposed to be doing at the same time. She can just sort of wander along on her own. But she's got a very, very good sense of humour. She's a great giggler. And she's very quick-witted. And someone will say something and she'll come up with a very cheeky, quick-witted answer instantly. And she's very easy rapport with sort of banter with people.
The relaxed, friendly Australian manner and the great outdoors bring out the best in Diana. She has family connections down under, and the Australian bicentenary celebrations in 1988 was a perfect opportunity for her to relax, despite the occasional sound effect. Her wardrobe included an emerald green coat dress by Catherine Walker and a cool, short-sleeved red dress by Alistair Blair, characterised by very short cap sleeves, extremely practical in sticky heat. Any suggestions of discomfort are quickly dispelled with a glorious photo opportunity at the bow of a paddle steamer. At a dinner dance in Melbourne, Catherine Walker scored again with a shell-pink figure-hugging long dress with bursts of bright blue floral patterns. On 2 previous visits to Australia in her younger days, Diana showed great confidence in the way she supported her husband, particularly on the dance floor. Naturally, on close occasions like this, the press always speculate about the state of the royal marriage.
I think every marriage goes through ups and downs. Maybe they've had their problems, but I know that they are both devoted to their children and devoted to their jobs. I think she did a lot for him, and of course giving him 2 children and giving him a kind of a home, that was the greatest change of all. And I think that, you know, the birth of his 2 children were probably the greatest days in his life. They form a terrific partnership for Britain as ambassadors abroad. And, you know, they really enjoy their jobs. They do feel they can make a difference. And I think we've seen that for ourselves, the Princess, what she's done for AIDS, which was a subject that was practically untouchable in the beginning. And she has totally turned around the world's attitude to AIDS victims. She's probably done more to destroy fear and prejudice than any member of the royal family in the last 200 years.
At every opportunity, Diana campaigns for a better understanding around the world of distressing social problems like drug abuse and AIDS.
She has turned into a really serious woman who has a very real talent for people. That is not a PR exercise. It's not done for the cameras. That is absolutely Diana as a human being reaching out to other human beings. And that is the talent that she has, just brilliantly and naturally, and in a way that no other member of the royal family, or anyone that I've actually seen in operation like that, has.
The princess is always respectfully dressed. On a visit to the Muslim Gulf states, local customs and religion were respected. A desert picnic in Saudi Arabia meant sitting cross-legged. It had to be planned, and for the occasion, Catherine Walker had created a blue and white tunic with white pantaloons. Strictly no legs showing. On a visit to Pakistan, again local custom was observed. Diana appeared wearing a Catherine Walker creation designed for the occasion and to match the sumptuous surroundings of the presidential palace. For official occasions like this, Diana's gowns are paid for by the Foreign and Commonwealth Office as part of the cost of showing the flag around the world. Her beautiful gown of shell pink silk had a bodice inlaid with encrusted pearls.
One of the Catherine Walker dresses has got little paisley designs all over it, which is wonderful. I mean, to actually compliment a country by having a sumptuous evening dress embroidered in that way, I think that's magnificent.
This evening gown, I think, is my favourite outfit of everything she's ever worn. And it doesn't photograph well either. When you see it, you can't stop staring at it because it's so beautiful. The chiffon silk is so soft and flowy, and the workings of embroidery on the bodice are so fine. It's just exquisite, the whole dress. And as she walks, it flows with her. And she wore it in Pakistan, and because of local customs, about showing the neck and being very demure, she wore a very long stretch of the same fabric, just sort of thrown around her shoulder, sort of like Grace Kelly type a bit, just sort of slung over her shoulder that sort of flayed out behind her. And it looked beautiful. And as she walked along, because she was so tall next to all these Pakistan dignitaries who were tiny, this dress made her look even taller. She looked about 10 foot tall, and it all sort of flowed out. It was a wonderful dress.
Royal protocol demands standing out in a crowd in a dignified and respectful manner. On a visit to the Vatican, the Princess of Wales wore a black lace calf-length dress by Catherine Walker, with a dropped V-shaped skirt with a lace veil in the same fabric. Diana's choice proved yet again that a coat dress was practical and an important part of a working wardrobe. In Florence, a cheeky addition of a black bow tie made an interesting variation to a white wool suit by Jasper Conran. Diana's tastes are definitely influenced by her love for foreign travel and exotic places, not least Italy, where her choice of clothes reflects her eye for the original look. One of her favourite Italian designers is Moschino.
Well, Moschino's a wonderful designer, and he's a very witty designer, and you always feel very sort of jolly if you wear his clothes, and very happy, and there's always sort of pun in them, or there's kind of a joke. I mean, like the big houndstooth that she wears quite a lot now. If you could pick a designer for her, Moschino is a great one for big occasions. Well, not big occasions, but I mean actually, the bouquet occasions and walking down and the shaking hands occasions, because it makes people smile and it is something different and they do look great. And he cuts very well.
On a visit to France, the Paris fashion world was captivated when Diana stepped from the plane wearing an outfit by Chanel, their national design label.
I was delighted when she went to France and she wowed them all in her Chanel suit, which was bright red, and the longer skirt and the hat and everything. I thought that was terrific. It was very important for the princess to make an enormous impact because obviously it's the fashion capital of the world. And I think she chose a very good outfit, and I think she looked terrific, and they really were bowled over. They were completely mesmerised by the fact she didn't get off the plane wearing an English designer, which would have been, for the export business, wonderful, but she actually came wearing their top label.
It was the first time Diana had worn French clothes on French soil, but later all eyes turned to an evening dress designed by Victor Edelstein.
It was at the Élysée Palace, a dinner, very elegant, extremely elegant French women arriving in these wonderful gowns. The whole place was just exactly as you'd imagine a sort of super French banquet to be. And she arrived and got out the car, and this dress, it just looked something from another era. It's in a very heavy ivory Duchess satin. It shimmers, and the bodice of it is all worked with embroidery and it has a short jacket. And it's very, very elegant, very regal.
Often Diana will arrive wearing something that's been seen before, like this red woolen suit with black lapels by Rifat Ozbek.
He's always been the darling of the sort of, not really truly glamorous, but people that really understand and like fashion. And he's, you find people, a lot of people like Tina Turner wear Ozbek. There's something about him, in the same way there is about Moschino, he's a very good designer, he cuts beautifully, but he's a little bit witty and a little bit scary. And so when you actually start to wear Ozbek a lot, you know a lot about fashion, you know a lot about yourself, you know many things. And he does do quite outrageous things. And I'm sure the princess has probably got some of those. We've only seen the rather sort of tamer ones, but he's good, and I'm glad she wears his clothes because they're beautiful.
With more than 350 public engagements a year, Diana's choice of clothes reflect the activities of a busy working woman. Always at the centre of attention, her experience tells her exactly what is suitable for the occasion.
When she first became the Princess of Wales, I'm sure that she wanted to have endless clothes made because she had to try and see what worked and how she suited a longer jacket or a shorter jacket or a longer skirt or a gathered skirt or a full skirt. And I think what happens finally, I certainly, if you're 10 years into wearing a lot of clothes, you begin to know exactly what you want. So in fact, where 5 suits had to do, 1 suit does. Because you can wear it often, you can change it slightly, you aren't really bothered, you know you look good in it, and that's the end of it. And you can wear it endless occasions, and it doesn't matter who says what to you, but that's the suit you feel good in. That's the true sign of confidence, is that she's actually wearing a lot of things now very often that we've seen before, and nobody's commenting, nobody cares. It's because what they really want to see is the Princess of Wales. And she's come over that great, what is she wearing now? We all know it's the Rifat again. And it's a marvellous change in her that we don't actually care too much what she's wearing anymore, because she always looks wonderful, and it could be something we've seen, 2 weeks before.
Above all, though, it's on really formal occasions like state banquets in presidential palaces that Diana's elegance is so arresting. Her wardrobe for this visit to Indonesia included a gown in ivory lace and satin designed by David and Elizabeth Emanuel. Careful about what she drinks, Diana refuses a glass of champagne, preferring water instead.
When she's really dressed up in the evenings and she looks really stunning, she's all sort of glamorous and glittery, and she arrives and she knows she looks good, and she's sort of got a little swagger to her walk and looks very happy with herself. And she sort of glows towards the cameras when she's like that. She reacts to the cameras when she knows she's looking good. She's sort of very cheeky and good-humoured. She'll sort of do a little, not a dance, but sort of shuffle around and move around so that we get good shots. And this dress is an example of that sort of confident dressing, sort of showing off her sort of sexy shape as she walks along. And it's a very long-fitted tube dress and completely worked all over it with beads. And it's got a short jacket with it with a very high collar. And as she walks along, it's a very high slit at the back, so even from the back it looks good. And it fits her sort of hips, and because of her height, it's really accentuated. She just looks like a long white slither walking along. And she always seems to wear it when she's got a good tan. She always chooses it to emphasise it. Looks very, very glamorous.
She understands taste, she understands proportion. She totally knows if fashion, just lately we've lost our shoulder pads, as you might have noticed. We probably haven't in the last 2 or 3 years. We've begun to lose our shoulder pads after the huge, dynasty kind of thing went on during the 80s, after the kind of Japanese thing had finished. And the princess immediately has lost. She's really au fait with what's going on. I mean, she does totally... Once you're in the fashion sort of thing, it's not a question of being a fashion victim or not having your own taste or not being told by other people to do it. It's something you do, you just evolve with it. And she is marvellous, and she just seems to... she's almost ahead of us at the moment.
She looks better than she did right at the beginning. She's slimmer, she is more gorgeous, and she has a more distinctive dress style. I think that's because early on she was very influenced by perhaps her mother, family and friends. She wore a very traditional English look. Lots of girly, swirly ball gowns that were very romantic and very pretty on a girl of 19, but they're totally unsuitable for a more sophisticated woman. And so as she learnt a lot about the world and about life, you could see a great transformation come over her. She dropped all those full-skirted romantic ball gowns that used to look like a portrait by Winterhalter on the walls of Windsor Castle, and she got into a very sleek, chic look. I think that was also because she began studying fashion, making her own decisions, and dropped the advice of some of the fashion experts she talked to in the beginning, and realised that the continental women she met, who looked incredibly elegant, always wore very slim-fitting clothes, the sort of clothes that reveal the figure underneath. When you've got a great figure, it's nice to wear clothes that emphasise it. So in a way, the demure Diana look went out the window, and the devastating, dazzling Diana came along. And I think that when she wears one of those Victor Edelstein evening gowns now, there's nobody can be more of a knockout than she can. I mean, I've seen her walk into a room and just the women just sort of kind of reel back. She hits them like a wave on a surfing beach and knocks everybody sideways. She just looks fantastic.
Dressing up is just part of the job for Diana. She is instinctive about what she wears and naturally intuitive about her role. Calming nerves and easing tension in a charming and humorous way is second nature to her. In people's affections, Diana is a natural successor to the Queen Mother. As the role of monarchy moves towards the 21st century, Diana, model princess, will be there, bringing to the face of royalty a unique and personal blend of style, dignity, and charm.